Mwiriwe mwese, bonsoir, good evening. This is Chusanwari, your moderator for today on this One Nation Radio series of talk on fighting denial, genocidal denial, à la lutte contre les révisionnistes et les négationnistes du génocide perpétré contre les Tutsis en 1994. As you know, we've covered many regions where we have the Rwandan diaspora, and also different guests. We've talked with different ambassadors around the globe, but we thought we have to also talk to the youth because, as you know, not only the African continent, but the Rwandan nation is essentially now, demographically speaking, has a majority of youth. So we thought, who better than the youth can speak for itself? Today, we are privileged to have people residing in different countries, but are all Rwandans active in their respective diaspora. We have people from Canada, we have people from the US, Belgium, but as well people in Rwanda, like Muhumuza, myself, and some other guests. So today we hope that you're gonna hear from the youth, because again, I've been in many panels, in many conferences where people speak on our behalf, and I'm not always very happy about this, but today, I'm really excited to see the youth speak about where they see the country going and how can we use all the tools we have readily available to fight denials of the genocide, to fight revisionism, and to fight negationism that is still occurring, unfortunately, and now even occurring in the Rwandan youth as well, which is very sad. A lot of them live in the diaspora, and we're really trying to see today, I hope, in a symbolic hour, how we can fight back this, or how we can even invite them to visit their country, and we invite them to really change the narrative they're now spreading on social media. With that, I'll have our guests introduce themselves in a brief 2 minutes or so about where they're residing, how involved they are in the Rwandan diaspora, and as well, if there's anything special they want our attentive audience to know about them. I have a list here of how they're going to introduce themselves. So I'll start with Miss Rita.
Hello, thank you so much once again for allowing us to have this chance and an opportunity to talk to our fellow Rwandans, fellow youth, and also to speak for ourselves, like you're saying. My name is Ngarambe Rita Lawrence. I am currently crowned as Queen of Emancipation Canada. I am Miss Face of Humanity Rwanda in Canada, which is going to be a global challenge to be Miss Face of Humanity Global. So I guess, and I hope that you guys can support me in that. And I am a humanitarian activist as well as a poet. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll have Miss Marie-Neige.
Oui, bonjour. Merci d'abord de m'avoir invité, Kyosa, et Simon, pour discuter sur ce débat qui est très essentiel et très intéressant. Mon nom est Marie-Neige Moredwa. Je vis en Belgique. Je suis rwandaise d'origine et de nationalité belge. Je vis en Belgique depuis 30 ans, depuis mon jeune âge. Et donc, la jeunesse belge ou rwandaise, plutôt en parlant pour moi-même, ayant grandi ici et fait partie de mon expérience moi-même. J'espère apporter ça dans ce débat. Aussi, je suis financial officer dans une ONG en Belgique. C'est une ONG flamande, mais qui est également à une branche au Rwanda. Je suis à côté de ça maman et épouse. J'ai un petit garçon de 6 ans. D'ailleurs, c'est la fête des mères aujourd'hui. Donc, et à côté de ça, je suis aussi vice-présidente d'une association Femmes Leaders Mondiales qui a pour but de promouvoir la femme au plus haut standing, si on peut dire ça comme ça, la femme rwandaise. Mais c'est une association internationale dans laquelle on vient de lancer le Rwanda, qui est le premier pays de l'Est, en Afrique de l'Est, qui sera créé très prochainement, enfin qui est déjà en cours de route. Donc, ça sera en vue d'aider les femmes rwandaises qui sont justement les rescapées du génocide, aussi des veuves des femmes qui sont démunies de savoir, d'éducation, et qui peuvent d'une certaine façon s'en sortir, même si elles sont un petit peu, elles n'ont plus confiance en elles, on va dire ça comme ça. Donc notre association est là pour les aider à réavoir cette confiance et à s'émanciper d'elles-mêmes. Donc voilà, je passe la parole à mon prochain.
Merci beaucoup à Marie-Neige. Mugabo Pierre, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, bonsoir tout le monde. Très content aussi d'être là et je vous remercie pour l'invitation. C'est important, comme Chouza disait, de pouvoir participer à des discussions où c'est les jeunes qui prennent la parole et je suis honoré d'avoir été invité. Moi, mon nom, c'est Mugabo Pierre et je vis en Belgique depuis, je suis né au Rwanda, mais je suis venu ici très jeune, à l'âge de 3 ans. Et je suis politologue de formation. Et ici en Belgique, je suis le responsable jeunesse de l'association de la Diaspora rwandaise de Belgique. Et très content d'être avec vous ce soir.
Merci beaucoup à Mr. Ernesto, please.
Thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, my name is Ernesto Ujezue. I'm a journalist. I've been living in the US for like 5 years now, and I worked. Before I came to the US, I worked as a journalist with different media houses in Rwanda. I started with a radio station called Radio Isangano. It's a community radio in Western Province, and then Flash FM, and then RBA. So on Ara TV and Magic FM, I was an entertainment journalist. Then I moved to the US, to pursue my master's, and I went to the University of Michigan. Then after that, that's when I joined Voice of America. So I worked for Voice of America for almost 2 years. Right now I'm a freelancer. I'm still a journalist, but I'm a multimedia journalist, but I do freelancing, and I have the different platforms that I use to connect and to reach out to different youth in diaspora. So I have a podcast. I don't know if you guys get a chance to check it out. My podcast is called My Voice Podcast. So it's a podcast that pretty much highlights talents in diaspora. And I am the co-founder and the host of the new platform called Rwanda Hub that is on Clubhouse, and it's really huge. And we pretty much choose topics and invite speakers to debate and talk on different topics, and most of our audience are in Europe and the US, and of course home, because it's now for the people who use iPhone. I guess that's what I pretty much do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miss Sandra, please.
Yes, thank you, Chusa, for inviting me in this conversation. My name is Wase Sandra, and I live in the Netherlands. For those who don't know where it is, it's near Belgium, so in West Europe. I'm Rwandese, like all of you. I was raised here, but I do speak in Rwanda. I often go back. I'm a student, marketing student, social business studies. I also just started my own small company, an organic products company. So I'm very excited to maybe share it with all Rwandans soon, near the future. I'm also a chairperson in the IBUCA of the Netherlands, of the embassy, and also a committee member of the youth here in the Netherlands of the Rwandan diaspora. So thank you.
Thank you. Mohire, please.
Ouais, alors, bonsoir à tous. Je pense que je vais représenter le Kinyarwanda. Sonire, Antoine, barizwa mu Rwanda, ariko navuye muri diaspora muri Canada. Nakoze ibintu byinshi cyane. Job yanjye muri Canada yari muri polisi ya Montreal. Ariko nje mu Rwanda nafunguye company yanjye muri fintech. hagati aho nkorera n'ibigo bya leta. Mu buzima busanzwe ndi na komiseri mu bumwe n'ubwiyunge, uri in charge cyangwa se en charge de la jeunesse muri komisiyo y'ubumwe n'ubwiyunge, kandi nkaba na vice president wa association bita umurinzi, itera inkunga abafasha kurwanya abahakana. So yeah, ngira ngo nibyo ngibyo twavuga, noneho wenda tukaza kuganira no ku bindi. Murakoze ko mwadutumiye.
Murakoze cyane. Hakurikiraho Madame Hope.
Thank you for accepting me and inviting me in your space. I'm really honored to share this kind of conversation because it has been that kind of conversation at my heart for the last 20 years that I've lived in this country. And yeah, I'm the founder and writer, artistic director of Mashirika Performing Arts and Media Company, which uses art as a tool for social transformation, or art to spark difficult conversation, or art to create safe spaces, to have the, safe spaces people can feel where they can feel at home, to spark a journey of healing, to just accept themselves and, focus on themselves as humans first before they can focus on anyone else. So that's what really Mashirika really does. We do a lot of community-based work as well. I'm also the curator for Ubumunu Arts Festival. Ubumunu Arts Festival is it takes place every July after the 100 days of mourning the genocide against Tutsi. It takes place at the amphitheater at Kigali Genocide Memorial. It was strictly created for the sake of humanity, to recall the human values that seem to have slipped out of our spaces. Yeah, I'm also a human being, and sometimes I wear a cape as well of casting. I cast for a lot of movies that have taken place in Rwanda, Shake Hands with the Devil, sometimes in April, Beyond the Gates, the recent one, which was Our Lady of the Nile, and to mention but a few. Yeah, so with time, I'll keep talking about what I do. It's like that, but yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. Last but not least, Arnold.
Yes. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here today and participate to this conversation. So my name is Arnold Tulagara. Arnold, such as Arnold Schwarzenegger. I wish I'd be as strong as him, but unfortunately, it's not the case. I'm 23 years old. I live in Belgium since I'm 2. I'm still a student. I'm in my last year of my master's degree in business management at Ishek Brussels Management School. I work for the youth committee of the Rwanda Diaspora in Belgium. So Pierre is my boss. And I'm also in the organizing team of the Rwanda 2 2021. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much. Before we continue, it's I'm glad that Madame Marinège reminded us that today we celebrate mothers. When you know the central role mothers have had in keeping the spirit of Rwanda, the central role in rebuilding Rwanda, central just in general in kurera abana bacu, abana ejo hazaza bazaba abayobozi. It's important to remember that on this May 9th, it's Mother's Day. So to all of you mothers on this call and mothers that we have or had, let's, I hope, keep them close to our hearts. With that, we have Ms. Aurore that just joined us. So Ms. Aurore, if you don't mind just giving us a quick 1 or 2 minutes of where you're residing, how involved you are in the diaspora in the US, and in general, who is Ms. Aurore? And then we'll pass it to Muhumuza. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I am Aurore Kayivanga. I now reside in Maine, Portland, in the US. And I was crowned Miss Rwanda 2012, Miss Vespam 2013, sorry. I'm a social influencer, and I do not play any role in the Rwandan community right here just because of my private life. I guess that's it.
So thank you very much, and we're glad that you were able to join us. With that, Muhumuza, I'll pass back to the microphone. Please as well introduce yourself for those that maybe don't know who you are, and then let's just start the panel. Thank you.
Murakoze cyane Cyusa, ubwo ngira ngo abari badukurikiye n'ubundi munakurikiye kino kiganiro. Mugenzi wanjye Cyusa yari yababwiye ko iki kiganiro tugiye gukora kiraba kiri mu ndimi zitandukanye, Igifaransa, Icyongereza ndetse n'Ikinyarwanda. Jyewe nitwa Simeon Muhumuza, nkaba ndi umunyamakuru nkorera One Nation Radio ishami ry'i Kigali. Ubwo ngira ngo nyuma y'uko abantu rero mumaze kwibwira nabo tugiye kuganira, namwe mudukurikiye mwagiye mwumva ibyo bakora ndetse n'ibihugu bagiye baherereyemo, reka mbabwire ko wenda kubumva ururimi rw'Ikinyarwanda icyo tugiye kuganiraho ari icyo usanga kimeze nk'ipfobya cyangwa se ihakana rya Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi, by'umwihariko mu rubyiruko ruba hanze y'u Rwanda cyangwa se muri diaspora mu ntara ya 6. Mwumvishe ko abo tugiye kuganira bose barimo abantu bari n'ubundi hanze y'u Rwanda muri ya ntara ya 6, ariko n'ubundi harimo n'abari mu Rwanda ariko nanone naho bahabaye. Mu gutangira reka mbere nko kuri Ernesto, ngira ngo umaze igihe muri Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika. Uyu munsi muri uyu mwaka turimo twibuka Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi ku nshuro ya 27. Ku bwawe usanga ari ukubera iki ugisanga hari abantu bagihakana ndetse bakanapfobya Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi, noneho ugasanga by'umwihariko muri iyi myaka hatangiye no kuzamo urubyiruko cyane? Mu mboni yawe ubona biterwa n'iki?
Urakoze. Sinzi wenda abantu kubera ukuntu baba babayeho, hari zimwe mu navuga wenda bimwe mu byo bashobora kudahuza, ariko urebye usanga njyewe ngende wenda nko kuri experience yanjye, kubera ko wenda ngira amahirwe yo kubona n'urubyiruko cyangwa kuganira cyane n'urubyiruko. Urebye abantu bahitamo gupfobya aba ari amahitamo. Ni ukuvuga ngo navuga ko abenshi ntabwo ruvuga ngo ntabwo aba ari afite informations, cyane cyane nk'abajene cyangwa urubyiruko, kuko internet irahari. Nubwo waba utaragize amahirwe yo kugera i Kigali cyangwa se utanafite na gahunda zo kujya i Kigali, ubishatse wamenya ikijya mbere. So ni ukuvuga ngo rero amateka ya Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi arazwi, kandi uwo ari we wese wabishaka yayageraho ku buryo bworoshye. Hari inzibutso, hari ubuhamya bugiye butandukanye. Hope yabivuzeho, hari amafilme atandukanye, bo bakora amafestivali, ibyo byose birahari kandi bigaragara kuri YouTube n'ahandi. So urebye rero ntekereza ko abenshi mu bahitamo gupfobya ni amahitamo yabo, cyangwa se ni kuba babihisemo, uretse ko wenda nta nakwinyura ko hashobora kuba wenda n'undi ushobora kuba wenda ufite amakuru makeya, ariko still abishizemo ubushake cyangwa se abishatse yabimenya. So ntekereza ko ari amahitamo yabo.
Yego. Hanyuma Bwana Muhire, ngira ngo uri Kigali ariko no muri diaspora nawe wayibayemo, ndetse urubyiruko uhura narwo n'ibi turi kuvuga uyu munsi wa none, birimo kuba hari abapfobya Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi nyuma y'imyaka 27 yose. Wowe nk'umuntu n'ubundi wagiye uba no mu nzego zitandukanye, aho n'ubundi wahuye n'urubyiruko, usanga ari ukubera iki mu myaka mike ishize, reka tuyite mike kuko ubu nibwo bitangiye gufata imbaraga, ariko n'ubundi na mbere byahozeho, ariko usanga muri iyi myaka itambutse nk'5 wenda duhereye aho, niba ntibeshya ariko ntabwo ngiye kure cyane, urubyiruko rutangiye kuzamo, ugasanga narwo ruri gupfobya Jenoside. Kuki usanga muri iyi minsi aribwo hatangiye kugaragara urubyiruko narwo ruri kuyoboka iyi nzira yo gupfobya no guhakana Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi?
ubundi ngira ngo abashakashatsi berekanye ko Jenoside igira amafaze cyangwa phases. Imwe muri faze ya nyuma ni uguhakana ko yabaye. Ibyo ntabwo ari umwihariko kuri Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi mu 1994 gusa, no ku bajuifu tugendeye ku bayahudi yabakoreye biracyaba. Nk'uko bivuze cyangwa ko mugenzi wanjye yabivuze mbere, amakuru arahari. Ushaka kuza mu Rwanda, hari abantu benshi cyane baje mu Rwanda bakajya bagasubira bakabwira abandi uko bimeze, za YouTube zirabyerekana, amaripoti arabyerekana. Iyo ntabwo ariyo mpamvu, ariko muri ya faze ni faze navuga ngo ibaho kandi inafata igihe kirekire tugereranyije n'uko ubu ngubu nubwo jenoside yakorewe abayahudi irenga imyaka 50 yarabaye, turacyabona abana bavuka bafite imyaka 15, abari muri Europe murabizi icyo bita ngo extreme droite, harimo abana b'imyaka 15 no munsi yaho babyuka batuka abayahudi cyangwa se bavuga ngo ntibyabayeho, kandi murumva ko ari jenoside yemewe na ONU cyangwa se n'isi yose. So natwe rero ntabwo byadukwiye kudutangaza kubona ko nyuma y'igihe gito nk'uko mubivuze imyaka 27 ni igihe gito cyane, twabona abana cyane cyane ko hari abana bagifite ababyeyi babo directement bakibana nabo. Ni ukuvuga ngo niba umubyeyi yari afite imyaka 30 mu gihe jenoside yakorerwaga abatutsi, ubu ngubu afite gusa 57, urumva aracyari umubyeyi ugifite imbaraga, ufite akanya ko ku intoxika cyangwa se kubeshya abana be akabatuma abashyira imbere. Ngira ngo abari mu Bubiligi murabizi, ariko n'ahandi naho biri kugaragara. Icya kabiri, tugendeye ku bihugu byagize uruhare mu gutegura iriya jenoside, akenshi usanga nk'icyo bita les archives cyangwa se uburyo ibintu byakozwe, ubwiru bwabo reka mbivuge gutyo, bufata hagati y'imyaka 25 kugira ngo babushyire ku karubanda. Ni ukuvuga rero muri icyo gihe ba bantu bayoboraga icyo gihe jenoside yakorerwaga abatutsi baracyakomeza gukoresha imbaraga zose zishoboye, hakajyamo no gufata urubyiruko rw'abanyarwanda ruri aho ngaho muri iyo communauté, babinyujije mu dufaranga hirya no hino kugira ngo nabo baze bapfobye. Ni ukuvuga rero iyo faze ni faze ntabwo nshaka kuvuga ngo iri normal, kuko jenoside ntabwo ari ikintu normal, ariko ni faze abashakashatsi berekanye ko mu jenoside zose zemewe iyo faze yabayeho. Ahubwo rero ikibazo twakwibaza ni iki cyakorwa kugira ngo abo bantu bari muri iyo faze batagira ingaruka ku
Mwakoze cyane. Dirigé vers les Rwandais résidents en Belgique. J'ai une question pour vous. Quand on parle justement de ce négationnisme et ce révisionnisme qui maintenant a été transmis, et le flambeau maintenant est porté par ce qu'on appelle la jeunesse, qui est un terme aussi vague, qui est jeunesse, mais en tout cas, on sait que ce sont des enfants d'eux et ce sont des personnes qui n'étaient pas personnellement impliqués dans la préparation du génocide, mais maintenant sont en train de propager des idéologies qui est évidemment fausse, mais qui vraiment la propagent comme s'ils faisaient partie des commanditaires de ce génocide. Donc, je me tourne vers vous, ce résident en Belgique. Comment faire? On pense à, je crois, Jambo News. Il y a peut-être d'autres que vous connaissez mieux, que nous ne connaissions pas. Mais quelles sont, vous direz, les stratégies, la façon de justement combattre cette idéologie, mais aussi peut-être le pourquoi. Pourquoi il y a eu Jambo News? Pourquoi ils sentent cette ferveur en eux de propager cette idéologie dont ils n'ont commandité rien, si ce n'est juste l'héritage qu'ils ont reçu de leurs parents? Merci. Donc à vous, entre Madame Marie-Neige, Monsieur Pierre et Arnold.
Du coup, je vais intervenir. Je pense que le pourquoi, c'est parce qu'en fait, ils suivent leurs parents, ce que leurs parents leur ont appris, les ont appris. C'est simple, il suffit de prendre un exemple. Si vos parents vous disent depuis que vous êtes petit que le rouge, c'est bleu, ou que les chiens sont des chats, et que vous restez dans un environnement qui vous dit que le rouge est bleu et que les chats sont des chiens, et que vous ne faites aucun effort, que vous ne cherchez pas à vous informer, à vous éduquer vous-même, vous allez vous aussi le croire. Et même si quelqu'un venait avec les meilleures intentions du monde en vous disant que le rouge est le rouge et que les chiens sont des chiens, vous ne le croirez pas, parce que finalement, en disant cela, il voudrait aussi dire que vos parents sont des menteurs et qu'ils vous ont menti toute votre vie. Donc, je pense que c'est pour ça, en fait. Je pense que c'est le fait d'avoir dans un environnement qui est déjà négationniste à la base. qui les ont, et aussi le respect des parents aussi, comme tu es jeune, tu respectes tes parents, c'est normal, mais le fait de voir leurs parents comme leurs parents, nos parents ce sont nos héros, et je pense que c'est ce fait-là qui fait qu'ils continuent avec cette mauvaise idéologie et que par souci de défense, autodéfense aussi, pour défendre leurs parents ou pour ne pas les accuser finalement. Je pense que c'est ça qui donne naissance à toutes ces journées négationnistes, à toutes ces personnes qui n'ont même pas vécu le génocide, mais qui, euh, qui veulent réformer l'histoire, quoi.
Ah ouais, s'il vous plaît, à Madame Marinage.
Oui, moi sur cette question, j'ai envie d'ajouter sur ce qu'Arnold vient de dire, que je pense qu'il cible surtout des jeunes vulnérables. Les jeunes vulnérables, c'est-à-dire soit ceux qui ont connu, qui connaissent l'histoire de leurs parents, enfin le génocide contre les Tutsis via l'histoire racontée de leurs parents, qui n'est forcément pas la vérité, mais vous avez aussi les jeunes qui sont nés ici, qui, eux, sont complètement hors circuit, donc ils ne peuvent que seulement, comme le disait Ernesto, soit vous avez le courage et vous avez la volonté d'aller apprendre de par vous-même l'histoire de votre pays et vous allez rechercher, là je parle évidemment des jeunes qui sont déjà en âge, enfin des adolescents ou des universitaires, etc. Ce sont des jeunes qui ont la capacité intellectuelle d'aller rechercher les informations eux-mêmes. À partir du moment où vous n'avez pas été endoctriné par papa et maman qui vous racontent une version complètement, on va dire, réinventée, vous avez la capacité intellectuelle de le faire. Maintenant, si vous n'avez vous avez que vos parents, effectivement, vous avez peur de les décevoir, etc. C'est ça que j'appelle cette vulnérabilité, c'est ils vont plutôt être plus disposés à croire tout et n'importe quoi, d'où la grande progression des jeunes qui veulent rentrer dans le circuit des deniers, si je peux dire ça comme ça. Mais il faut aussi savoir que pour l'avoir vu moi-même, j'ai aussi vu que les Jumbo News vont carrément recruter. Ils ont une espèce de système de recrutement où ils vont chercher carrément les jeunes dans les écoles. Donc, ils se font amis avec eux. Je ne sais pas par quel dialogue ou discours ils arrivent à les appréhender, mais en tout cas, on les invite. Donc, c'est-à-dire ces jeunes qui sont issus de la diaspora, qui sont nés ici, mais qui sont encore complètement, comment je vais dire, en âge ils ne sont pas encore intéressés par la politique, ils ne sont pas intéressés par comment je vais dire, cet âge où on dira innocente, hein, l'âge de l'innocence, où ils ont déjà été dans le pays, ils ont déjà été au Rwanda, mais c'est plutôt le Rwanda référence vacances, pas plus que ça. Et donc, en fait, qu'est-ce qu'ils font? C'est qu'ils recrutent ces jeunes dans les universités à un moment où ils sont dans l'ignorance totale et on va les endoctriner et plutôt leur pomper leurs idées. C'est plus facile. Et donc, ça, c'est aussi une disposition des jeunes, enfin, une disposition pour Jumbo News qui est toute ouverte pour pouvoir apprivoiser ces jeunes-là. Et ça, c'est quelque chose que nous devons combattre absolument par tout simplement, de un, les parents, ils ont un rôle à jouer là-dedans, très important. Nos parents, nos jeunes à nous, doivent aller à la rencontre de leur histoire. On doit les forcer d'une façon ou d'une autre. Pour moi, on doit un petit peu, comme Jumbo News le fait et les autres organisations comme ça, on doit forcer les choses et aller prendre aussi le devant, mais pour aller plutôt contrer leur stratégie à eux. Donc voilà, c'est ce que moi je voulais ajouter là-dessus.
Ah, si Mugabo Pierre, si vous voulez rajouter quelque chose.
Oui, j'aimerais rajouter quelque chose. Enfin, on ne peut pas parler de toutes les raisons, mais il y en a une qui a déjà été mentionnée à plusieurs reprises et c'est celle liée à la présence, on le sait, de génocidaires et de leurs familles sur le territoire belge, qui peut être une raison de la propagation de discours révisionnistes et négationnistes.
Et ça, c'est un fait. Et je pense qu'on a été tous d'accord pour le répéter. Et il y a une deuxième chose que j'aimerais aussi dire et qui, je pense, est importante, c'est qu'au-delà de la propagation de ces discours négationnistes qui sont faits par des génocidaires au travers de l'éducation de leurs enfants ou autres, il y a aussi un point important, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, la négation et ces discours révisionnistes, en fait, trouvent leur relais dans plusieurs milieux, c'est-à-dire des milieux dans des organisations, des droits dites de droits de l'homme, au sein de la presse étrangère ou même au sein du monde politique. Et ça peut aussi être une raison qui fait que ces discours sont présents sur le territoire belge et 27 ans après, lorsqu'on sait que plusieurs des jeunes n'ont pas été présents lors du génocide ou étaient très jeunes, on passe aujourd'hui dans un processus de construction identitaire. Et dans ce processus-là, on se pose des questions par rapport à notre histoire. Et malheureusement, lorsque dans ce processus-là, on fait face à des fausses informations par rapport à notre histoire et on consulte des mauvaises sources, à ce moment-là, ça peut expliquer la construction de discours, de discours révisionnistes au-dedans de nous et au-dedans de jeunes qui, a priori, n'auraient jamais dû être exposés à cela puisqu'ils n'étaient pas présents à cette époque. Du coup, moi, c'était la petite, souligner le deuxième point que je trouvais important dans la discussion qu'on a maintenant.
Merci beaucoup. I'll be turning to Ms. Hope regarding some of the tools that have been used in different countries when it comes to healing from trauma. Has been art, has been writing, has been singing. And I was wondering, when you introduced yourself, you mentioned that that has been your field of expertise. Can you share with us some of the platform that have been created, safe spaces for the Rwandans in Rwanda to heal, but as well, Rwandans living across the globe to heal? And then I'll have Miss Rita and Miss Sandra and Miss Aurore maybe share some of how they've seen those platforms in the respective country where they reside in relation with arts. Because some of you mentioned that, I heard one was Miss Humanity. I know that Miss Sandra is part of Ibuka in the Netherlands. And then Miss Aurore with the different influences that she has on different platforms. I'll have you add to what Miss Hope is about to say. Thank you.
Basically, what we've been using is using theater in terms of creating those spaces that can open up people so that they can express themselves. So one of our major partners really has been Kigali Genocide Memorial. And I've always told people that when I came back to Rwanda 20 years ago, I came hoping that I was going to do, start working on the kind of works that are just going to talk about comedy and love and all that, because growing up in Uganda, I also grew up in an environment that was really about when there was a lot of political theater, and I was just tired of this. So coming back home, I had no idea of how the level of how art and culture had been abused in the past. I learned that actually art had the power to kill or to make or to build up a nation. And I realized that a lot of art had been used in the past to incite violence. And there was a lot of music that was composed. If you don't know the language, you'd find yourself dancing to that tune in a discotheque. And I realized that radio stations are all used the drama, the films. There was a lot of art that was being used that to incite violence. So I was like, enough is enough. I was born and raised in a notorious regime of Idi Amin, and all I had seen in my life was war, and I was hoping to just find love and peace back in my country. So I was like, not on my watch, am I going to see this happen again? And my background definitely was, how do you identify these kind of gaps in a community? How do you detect that bombs are about to explode and you just, mute them or detonate them, you just stop that. So my entire journey in this country has been that of, identifying these kind of gaps and using art to respond to these kind of gaps. But one gap I really found that had been used was the amount of hate, was the level of hate. Then I was like, if people can hate, can learn to hate, then they can learn to love. It dawned on me that nobody is born evil, nobody is born with prejudice. It's actually, we are taught to do that, but how much do we take in and how much do we grow up with? And when do we start taking choices to become what we are constantly thinking? So my really first encounter with this kind of situation was a piece we did for 10 years after the Rwandan genocide against Tutsi, which was called Africa's Hope. And Africa's Hope was a partnership. We partnered with Kigali Genocide Memorial, and they gave us a lot of text, a lot of testimonies to work with for the stadium performance, which was performed by young people. So I realized that was my first encounter with the reality and the gruesome of what had really happened in this country. And I was like, you know what? Art has the power. Art is the master key to speak the unspeakable. When words fail us, when even our own tongues fail us, because tongues can kill or make. Tongues produce words that are spiritual, because every word that comes out of our mouth, like right now when we started talking, is a spirit. It can bring love, it can create unity, it can create destruction, because words are poisonous. So I realized that these words that were handed to us came to us as gifts, and it was our responsibility as artists at that time to give it back to them in the same dignified manner, but in the spirit of to make, not to destroy. So there was a lot of text, and then there was these text excerpts from a journalist who was in Rwanda at that time. His name was Fago Kin. And as I was reading through his text and trying to merge them with the testimonies that we had been given, there are just these lines which I'm going to read to you that really, I made sure that they find a space in our script. And let me just read the lines to you. And these are the kind of interviews I was, having with young people at that time, because this whole production was about 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 11-year-olds who were 11-year-olds or 12-year-olds at the time of when genocide happened in 1994. So these are some of the excerpts. Children are not born racist. We are not born with prejudice. We are not born to hate. Somewhere down the line, someone lets us down. Someone feeds us on hatred, racism, prejudice, and that someone is an adult. Somewhere down the line, someone lets us down. Someone does not stop us from being fed racism, prejudice, and hatred, and that someone is an adult. Somewhere down the line, someone lets us down. Someone doesn't care. Someone does nothing to help us, and that someone is an adult. So you can see that the adult plays a big part here. And when you're growing up as a child, you're like a sponge. You absorb everything they feed into you. And I was like, you know what? We just need to, shed some light on this, that at the end of the day, before you're called anybody, before you're still like a baby, if you're a sponge, what kind of information are you absorbing? What is happening to this child? And I realized that, okay, let's say that you've been fed on prejudice and you've reached the age of 10. Can this be undone? Yes. If you learned how to do it, it can, so we can unlearn how to hate. So we've been using art in pushing the values of humanity. And we're like, at the end of the day, we are a human being, but what kind of human being? And if we're a human being that is a pen and is writing, and they say that humans are like a pen, you write every second that passes, you're writing a history. What kind of history have you written? Is that history? Because we are everyday witnesses of what's happening. So that's really what our art has been doing. And it has been creating, we are creating art that is going to stand as a witness, but not as a history or not as a piece of work that was created to destroy like in the past. And that's what I've been really fighting for. Or if we have, like right now, we are facing a lot of issues to do with the mental health. How do we use art to, reclaim ourselves? If we are just an exhausted human being that has been fed on poison, can we just do a self-check-in? Can you just check in your chambers of your heart and just say, well, where is the dirt? Because it's that dirt that creates anxiety. It's that dirt that creates, all this prejudice we are listening. At the end of the day, you need to feed yourself. You need to feed on a soul that is clean. But if it has been stained by somebody, you can unstain that. So that basically that we've been doing. Can we use art to heal? Can we use art as a walking stick for a country that we live in? But even for generations to come, we're going to have children. What are they going to find? What have we built for our children? So that's what basically we've been doing, like using art to confront those. And I found myself really that art is an encounter and so is life. So there's no, you can separate the two. So we vowed and signed up for just using the art to remake what has been, destroyed, to heal the wounds, to create also the conversations, like our recent conversation with the young people, which was Generation 25, which I really found very fascinating because of the different young people who are now claiming that they've not been told enough truth by their own parents. And how do we cover that gap? And what do we pick from the past and move forward? So that's what I've been engaging with conversations with the youth around the Generation 25 production. But what really amazed me is the story I came across at the Kigali Genocide Memorial. Maybe some of you have found a story. It's called Vanessa and Grace. So Grace was a 10-year-old during genocide, raised by a grandmother who was feeding prejudice. She was just a young Hutu girl being fed by the mother into like telling that person is a Tutsi, she's a snake, she's this, but she didn't buy that. So on their way as they're fleeing to Congo, there was a woman dying on the roadside with a 3-month-old baby. The woman was Tutsi. She had been hacked with all the machetes and all that, and she was dying. And she wept to Grace and said, Grace, no, she didn't know the name, of course. She wept, and children being children, she was just curious, what does this woman want? So she told the grandmother, can I go talk to the woman? There's a woman dying and she's calling. And the woman said, no, don't go there. She's a snake. But Grace refused. Grace listened to the positive voice in her saying, no, go back. So walking a few meters ahead, she went back to the dying woman. And the dying woman, in her dying breath, she said, take this child. If you survive, she will survive. And the woman died. And Grace took the baby, picked a blood-stained kitenge and just put this baby on her back and went to Congo. But all the time Grace was raising this baby, she was always being tortured to throw away the snake, and she refused. And today, those two are one of my heroes in Kigali, because Grace sells her vegetables in town, and she has raised this child she called Vanessa. And they don't look at each other as Hutu or Tutsi. So I created a production around them called Bridge of Roses, because I saw them as, roses that were bridging communities. And for me, they're a great testimony that, at the end of the day, like some of us have already said, it's a choice. But what choice are we making? Sorry I took so long, artists talk forever, but I hope I made sense to your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then that's going to create a good build up for my next question. So coming back to you, Miss Sandra, as you said, you're involved with Iwuka in the Netherlands. I was just wondering on how do you see Iwuka engaging the youth in the Netherlands? And then I'll have a question for Miss Rita and Miss Aurore regarding, after what we heard from Miss Hope, how can you use your social platforms to spread such stories that need to be heard more about Grace and Vanessa? Thank you.
Thank you, Chusa. How the Iwuka in the Netherlands involves the youth? That's a good question, because actually we don't have that many Rwandan youth diasporas here. So here in the Netherlands, most of them are near country, like I told you before, Belgium. So here in the Netherlands, you don't have that many Rwandan youths, or at least signed in the diaspora that we know of. Of course, there are more Rwandans like we can speak of, but we don't know them. So they have never contacted us. But Iwuka, The thing that I loved about Ibuka Netherlands is that most of the time of Ibuka, the parents always bring all their children. All their kids are joined. And then also afterwards, even in the midnight when, when there is that mourning time, that everyone is mourning about what they have been used to during their experience during the genocide against the Tutsis. They also bring their children. So I really loved about that fact that Ibuka Netherlands really, that the parents are really focused on teaching their children about their history, about what they have been through in their past life. So that's what Ibuka is doing. What we are also now doing is that we also created a small community around children of survivors here in the Netherlands. So the youth, we just started it, but because especially during now social media, the genocide deniers are so active. So this is the moment that we really want to involve a small community about children of the survivors, that we come together and talk about this. And especially because some parents also choose not to speak personally about their experience, tell them their children about it. So we want to tell them what their parents maybe don't dare to tell them or are protecting from telling them. So yes, that's what actually the Ibuka Netherlands does with the youth here in the Netherlands.
Thank you, Ms. Sandra. So back to you. I'll start maybe with Ms. Rita and then Ms. Aurore. How do you use your platforms? How do you use your influence to spread church stories of unity, like what we heard from Ms. Hope, Vanessa being saved by grace, but as well as we know this year we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Inyange High School, when students in Rwanda said no to Abanyarwanda and paid the ultimate price. So how do you use the respective platform to spread such amazing stories of when the youth stepped up to save the unity among Rwandans?
Murakoze, thank you so much again. It's hard to approach this conversation in regards to what everybody has said prior to this, starting from Hope and everyone else. I've been privileged enough to have worked with her before under Ubuntu Festival, where we raised funds to help the Rwandan community. And here in Canada, I'm also a board member for the RCA Toronto, as well as I host our Past Canada, which is our past that started in Rwanda commemoration within the youth. And also I have my own organization called United for Humanity. So all these things to say that I have been focusing more on the humanitarian aspect of everything. So the genocide that happened against the Tutsi was, yes, it was a division within our country, but how do we get the young people who were born after the genocide, including myself, to care about this? Perhaps I'm privileged enough or even unfortunate to have my parents that have suffered the consequences of genocide, or I have lost my family members. But what about those youth that have no relations to it? They were maybe outside the country, or they were born here. They're like, why should we care about the dark history of our country when we have an opportunity to start a new chapter, when we have an opportunity to move past that? Even some of the parents that were privileged enough to escape the war and the genocide against the Tutsi, to come into Canada to seek refuge, are like, we need a moment to heal. This is our moment to almost forget about that part of us that still hurts. So it's hard to raise these conversations amongst our youth, but also we try to approach it in a sense that it happened. And the truth is, even though it's not happening in Rwanda anymore, it's happening around the world. So whether we care about it, whether you are Hutu or Tutsi, whether you have, you choose not to identify with any of those, you're still a human being like Hope mentioned. So it's your responsibility to care about the safety of everybody. So we try, ngiye kubishyira mu kinyarwanda ibisigaye, tugerageza gufasha urubyiruko kwibuka ko ibyabaye bibareba cyane cyane nk'uko biraba ababyeyi babo. Kuko nimba ndahangaha ntazi ejo hazaza cyane cyane nk'uko abatureze cyangwa ababayeho mbere yacu bari bameze, nakeka ko nabo bashakaga kwiga cyangwa nk'abana bigaga Inyange barigaga bavuga tuzaba abaperezida, tuzaba abadogiteri, barafite ejo hazaza nkatwe twese. So bamwe baratubwira ngo turi busy, turi mu mashuri yacu, turi busy, turi gushaka ubuzima, turahuze, turi gushaka ejo hazaza hacu. Kuki tugomba kujya kubaka amateka cyangwa kuzimbura ibyazimye? cyangwa kuki twagenda tukajya kurwana nabo bari kuvuga ko jenoside yakorewe abatutsi muri 1994 itabaye. Ariko twabwira tuti igihe icyo ari cyo cyose mu gihe nta ruhare washyizemo kugira ngo utegure ejo hazaza wifuza, ejo hazaza wumva unezerewe, ejo hazaza wumva wifuriza abana bawe, ibyabaye biri most likely ko bizongera bikaba. Rero niho duturuka cyane cyane nka Our Past Canada, twigisha urubyiruko tuvuga tuti uko wumva ko ushaka kubona aya mafaranga ukahaha ukagwiza, uko wumva ushaka kwita ku muryango wawe, uko wumva ushaka kuba wagira future nziza, ni nako ubuzima bwawe cyangwa ubuzima gatozi bw'ikiremwa muntu bugomba guhabwa agaciro. Ntekereza ko cyane bose babifashe gutyo twabasha gufatanya hamwe tukarwanya abahakana our past, abahakana ejo hasize. So nibyo ngibyo najya mvuge, murakoze cyane.
Thank you very much. So now I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Oho. How are you using your influence and your platform to spread those messages of unity and also to fight back those that are denying the genocide against the Tutsi?
First and foremost is to represent the country as I am abroad, like to accept that I'm Rwandan and being part of being Rwandan. And definitely I use my platform to try to spread the news. Like there are so many people that denies that the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda did not happen, even though there is proof. Deep inside they feel like it's a heart broken open, kumva yuko hari umuntu ukirimo gupfobya cyangwa se somebody trying to say that the genocide did not happen, even though hari ibintu byinshi bigaragaza. Bref, using my social platform cyangwa se the platform that I was given, I try my best to represent the country and to show what it is about. And definitely what's about Rwanda hazamo jenoside yakorewe abatutsi mu Rwanda, even though ntabwo ari ikintu cyiza, but na amateka yacu, we have to talk about it. So aho ngeze hose uko mbishoboye, I try my best. Hope yakotinze, I don't really remember niba ari igitabo author cyangwa se ibyo yavuze, ariko mu kinyarwanda cyiza I think ibyo yavuze bisobanura yuko uburere buruta ubuvuke. Donc niba hari abantu bagifobya jenoside yakorewe abatutsi, they are being ignorant, kandi nta nubwo nabagaya cyane kubera yuko nibyo batojwe. Ndakeka na Rita abikomojeho mu kanya. Donc je ku giti cyanjye nk'umunyarwandakazi uko narezwe nuko nakuze, ngerageza kwerekana igihugu cyanjye uko kiri aho ngeze hose n'amateka yacyo, no kugerageza kumvisha abantu ko they have to, I mean that is not even, ntago umuntu ashobora kubinegosya kuvuga ngo jenoside yarabaye, ntago yarabaye, ntago wabinegosyaho. Donc bagomba kubyemera bakabyakira. Abafobya nabo, I'm sorry to say, but they have to think twice because it happened and yasize damage nyinshi. Ntabwo nari ndiho icyo gihe nari naravutse, even though ntazi uko ibintu byagenze, but nanjye I can consider myself as a victim kubera ko ntabwo nabashije kubona my parents, my uncle, my cousins, my dad n'abandi hirya no hino. Hariho ababuze ababyeyi babo bababyaye, imfubyi, abapfakazi. Donc icyo ni ikintu kiri undeniable. Rero abafobya jenoside sinzi icyo bashingiraho, sinzi ibyo baba basomye, sinzi aho baba bakuye amakuru, ariko I think mu magambo make ntafite uko nsobanura, they really have to understand and accept.
Yego, urakoze cyane Oho. Hanyuma ariko utaragenda, nk'uko bivuga rero, mwebwe reka mbyite nk'urubyiruko, urabona ko muri iyi minsi benshi mu bapfobya inzira bacamo niyo ku mbuga nkoranyambaga, niho babivugira hirya no hino. Nk'urubyiruko rero, nk'uko bibasaba ko bakwiye kwemera, mubasha kubikoraho iki, cyangwa se hahandi banyura mwebwe mubikoraho iki nk'urubyiruko muri rusange? Cyane ko na benshi usanga babivugira kuri social media cyangwa se babicishaho, usanga ariyo nzira babinyuzaho. Mwebwe mubikoraho iki?
Well, ndivugira ku giti cyanjye, ntabwo navugira undi muntu. Mu buryo bwanjye nshoboye, uwo nshoboye kugeraho, musobanura neza u Rwanda urwo ari rwo, amateka u Rwanda rwanyuzemo, n'ingamba mbese zagakwiye gufatwa kugira ngo igihugu kitazongera kunyura muri iyo curaburindi. Ariko nta nubwo mfite access cyangwa se ability yo gusubiza buri muntu wese kuri social media, but ibyo nshoboye nkanjye ku giti cyanjye nivugiye, ngerageza kubumvisha mu myumvire yanjye, uko narezwe, uko nakuze, mu bwenge mfite, kubumvisha yuko yes, jenoside yakorewe abatutsi mu Rwanda muri 1994 yarabaye. Ibyo twakora ni ibi ngibi, genre icya mbere ni ukuyemera, tubyemere ko ibyo bintu byabaye. Icya kabiri ni uguhashya urwango. Icya gatatu ni ukugerageza kubanaho nk'abanyarwanda, like putting our past behind, tukamovinga forward. Donc njyewe kuri social platforms zanjye mfite, ngerageza gukoresha uburyo nshoboye, ariko nanone ntabwo nababwira ngo mfite ability yo kuba nasubiza buri muntu wese cyangwa se kuba nakumvisha buri rubyiruko.